ॐ शुक्लां भरतरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजाननपद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानामेकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாபிவ சம்பிரக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन्। हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि आर्तान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീരക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പീരേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare. Good morning, everyone. We have a small group today anyway. So 85, let's do a whoever wants to do, any two people who want to do 85.
I can do.
I also can do. We'll do half and half.
Yeah.
Super.
நான் ஆரம்பிக்கிட்டா or நீங்க
ஆரம்பிங்க மைக்கேலிச்சி நீங்களே.
நான் ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன். दशकम् 85 जरासन्ध वधवर्णनम् राजसूय वर्णनं च ततो मगध भूभृता चिरनिरोध संक्लेशितं शताष्टकयुतद्वितयमीश भूमिभृताम् अनाथशरणाय यथे तमपि पूरुषं प्राहिणोत् अधाय चत स मागध क्षपणमेव किं भूयसा
Fourth line, first word, ayachata.
अयाचत स मागध क्षपणमेव किं भूयसा ययासुरभिमागधं तदनु नारदो दीरितात् युधिष्ठिरमखोद्यमात् उभयकार्यपर्याकुलः विरुद्धजैनोद्वरात् उभयसिद्धिरित्युद्यवे शशंसुषि निजै समं पुरमियेत यौधिष्ठिरीम् अशोषदयितायुते त्वयि समागते धर्मजो विजित्य सहजैर्महीं भवदपाङ्ग संवर्धितैः श्रियं निरुपमां वहन्नः भक्तदास सायितं भवन्त मयि मागधे प्रहितवान् स भीमार्जुनम्
And the first line, ashesha. Okay, I think we said ashosha by
sorry, yes, अशेषदयिताय गिरिध्वजपुरं गतास्तदनु देवयूयं त्रयो यया च समरोत्सवं द्विजमिषेण तं मागधम् अपूर्ण सुकृतं त्वमुं पवनजेन संग्रामयन् निरीक्ष्य सह जिष्णुना त्वमपि राजयुद्धा स्थितः अशान्त समरोन्ततं विटपत् पाटनासं यया निपात्य जरसस्तुतं पवनजेन निष्पाटितं विमुच्य नृपतीन् मुदा समनुगृह्य भक्तिं परां दिदेशिथ गतस्पृहानपि च धर्म गुप्त्यै भुवः sorry
प्रशकृषि
I can do
युधिष्ठिरे
one more. There's 11 I think, but that's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. प्रशकृषि युधिष्ठिरे तदनुराजसूयात्वरं प्रसन्न भृतहि भवत्सकलराजकव्याकुलं त्वमप्ययि जगत्पते द्विजपता वनेजादिकं चकर्त किमु कथ्यते नृपवरस्य बाक्योन्नदीः ततः सवनकर्मणि प्रवरमर्क्यभूजावितिं विचार्य सह देव वागनुगतः सधर्मदात्मजः वियत्तत् भवदे मुता सदसि विश्वभूतात्मने तथा ससुरमानुषं भुवनमेव तृप्तिं ददौ ततः सपति चोदिपो मुनिनृपेषु तिष्ठत्स्वाहो सभाजयति को जटः पशुपदुर्दूरुटं वटुम् इति त्वयि स दुर्वचो विदति मुत्वमन्नासनात् उदापद दुदायुतस् समपतन्नमुं पाण्डवाः
निवारि first line, second word, chedipo. Okay, you said chodi, chedipo.
निवार्य निजपक्षका नभिमुखस्य विद्वेषिणः त्वमेव जृषो शिरो तनुजतारिणा स्वारिणां जनुस्तृतयलप्तया सततचिन्तया सुदधीः त्वया स परमेकदा मत्कृत योगिनां दुर्लभाम्
The last
ततस्
line, when you say paramekatam, then it becomes adrita yoginam durlabam. Then it will start with the a. Okay, next word.
Okay. Okay. ततः सुमहिते त्वया कृतुवरे निरूढे जनो ययौ जयति धर्मजो जयति कृष्णा इत्यालपन् कलसदु सुयोधनो दुदमनः सपत्न श्रिया मयार्पितसभामुखे स्थलजलप्रमादभ्रमीत् तथा सहितमुत्थितं नृपतनन्दना भीमयोः अपाङ्गकलया विभो किमपि तावदुज्जृम्भयन् तरापरनिराकृतौ सपदि नाम बीजं वपन् जनार्दनमरुत्पुरी निलय पाहि मामामयात् कृष्णाय परमः.
Good. All right, so 86 will continue. Did we do stanza 9? I wrote it down saying we did 9. In 86.
Correct. Yes,
Okay,
correct.
we did 9. Okay.
9 முடிச்சிட்டோம்.
Okay.
ஆனா நீங்க மீனிங் தான் அப்புறமா சொல்றேன்னு
Okay, all right.
சொன்னேன்.
Okay, so we'll start with 10 and we'll say the meaning of 9 also at the same time.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Sir,
All
I
right,
have a question in stanza 5.
In the
the
86 or 80?
85 less.
Okay.
Dite shita katas brihana napichava illa adu
Sprihanapi.
briha.
No, SP. Sprihanapi.
So how do you say that, sir?
Dite shita Gata sprihanapi cha dharma guptyai bhuvaha.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we'll start with 10.
Where are you talking about? Which one?
85th Dasakam, 5th stanza, last line.
Last one, sorry.
Last line, yeah. Sprihanapi. Dide shitagata sprihanapi cha dharma guptyai bhuvaha.
Okay. Thank you.
Bhuvana, you can be student, and Mridulaji, you can be student. So stanza 10. संसुप्त द्रौपदीय क्षपन हतदीयं द्रौणीमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृत विजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशर्त्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्ठमात्र किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम्. So kind of going through the story, like we saw last time, it was getting rid of Salva and then all about the Mahabharata war, right? That was actually going on. And in stanza 8, it talked about how against Bhagadatta, against Karna, against all of those things, Krishna, you protected the Pandavas, you protected Arjuna in various ways, right? So stanza 9, see, Balarama had a very, he's of course part of the Yadavas, Krishna's brother and all that, but he also was Duryodhana's guru, right? So it was very awkward situation for him to see which side he had to go fight for. So what Balarama said is, I'm not going to participate in the war at all. So he ends up going to this holy spot called Naimisharanya. So Naimisharanya is a very, very religious spot, just like how in Tirupati, the Tirumala is the Bhagavan, right? The hill itself, the mountain itself is the Bhagavan. Similarly, here in Naimisharanya, the forest is the god. There is no individual deity which is sitting inside or anything. The entire forest is the Krishna's incarnation as a forest is Naimisharanya. And that is the place where the first conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam starts with the sages performing a homam in Naimisharanya forest and then beginning to ask questions. It's a very, very religious place. So anyway, Balarama goes there. And then there, he meets some Shudra and all that. He gets rid of them, and then eventually he comes back to this point. When he comes back, that is when the battle between Duryodhana and Bhima is going on. So when Balarama comes back, he says, okay, the war is still going on. and that too between Bhima and Duryodhana, two of the people who he, who's very close to him. So he decides, I don't want to be part of this at all. And then he just goes back to Dwaraka. So Balarama has really no involvement in the Mahabharata war. That is what is mentioned in 9. Now, in 10, there's again a very big story, but I won't get too much into it because so this Drona's son Ashwatthama, you all know the story, right? Ashwatthama never had a huge part. Duryodhana never gave him a huge part. So he always felt like he did not do his enough duty. So when Duryodhana was lying on the deathbed, Ashwatthama decides that I'm going to make you proud, Duryodhana. So what he does is he wants to go get rid of the Pancha Pandavas. So overnight, when everybody is sleeping, he goes into the Pandavas camp and then looks at 5 people sleeping and he kills all 5 of them. And then he kills all 5 of them and he comes back to Duryodhana and says, I have killed the 5 Pandavas. Even Duryodhana felt that is an atrocious act that you have performed. To go into an enemy camp at night, because they had rules for the war. So you can't just go into the enemy camp when they were sleeping and get rid of them. So which is what Ashwatthama ends up doing. So even Duryodhana says, I don't want to hear from you what you did. You actually kind of put me down even more. Right? But what Ashwatthama ended up doing was he didn't kill the Pandavas, he killed the Upa Pandavas, who were the children of the Pandavas. So Abhimanyu was anyway gone. The other 5 children who were there were also gone, which means that Pandavas do not have anybody next after them right now as a hierarchy, right? As an ancestry. So the Pandavas get very upset, they go after him. There's a long conversation that happens about whether Ashwatthama has to be killed or if Ashwatthama has to be let go. Finally, Draupadi says, he's your guru's son. So no matter how much crime he has committed, at the end of the day, he's your guru's son, so you let him go. So they kind of cut off, shave off his head and all that, let him go. Another long story. So, but Ashwatthama's, he still doesn't stop. What he does is, he then sends 5 Brahmastrams targeting each of the Pandavas, and then another one targeting Uttara, who is Abhimanyu. So Arjuna's son Abhimanyu, who got killed in the Chakravyuha, his wife Uttara was pregnant with a child, who is the only leftover child right now in the Pandavas' ancestry. And then he sends one towards her Garbham, very specifically aimed at her Garbham. So, when Krishna is leaving for Dwaraka, at that time Uttara comes running. Uttara comes running and says, and she directly approaches Krishna. She doesn't approach any of the Pandavas. Bhima is standing there, Arjuna is standing there. She doesn't approach any of them. She falls directly on Krishna's feet and says, Krishna, something is burning in my stomach. It feels like somebody has targeted something towards my stomach and you have to help me out. So at that time, Krishna, with the Sudarshan Chakra, he protects the 5 Pandavas and then he himself, Rakshan Angushta Matrena, he becomes the size of a thumb and gets into Uttara, and then he starts circling around Uttara's fetus, right? So, and then protecting the baby who is to be born. So nothing happens to the baby, and the impact of the Brahmastra is completely reduced. So with that, then eventually the baby is born. So now that's why that son is called Parikshit, who then goes on to then lead the Pandavas, right? So here this name Parikshit has a couple of meaning. One of them is this baby, when it is born, or before it is born, imagine nobody has access to the womb of the mother inside, right? It's a very safe place for the baby. But this baby, small one, is looking and seeing somebody has come inside. And then it is actually looking around because this person is going around the fetus, right? So, Ikshata is to see, Pari means to look around. So this baby was looking around in the fetus, so it's called Parikshit. That's one way, meaning for the word. The second meaning for the word is after the baby is born, it has seen this Narayana form with Chaturbhujam in the womb. So it was always curious, who is that person who actually came, right? And then it kept looking, it keeps seeking that person. That is another name for the word Parikshit. Anyway, it's long Parikshit Charitram, but we won't get into that. But this is what is explaining. You then went in and protected Parikshit, right, by getting in there.
What is the meaning of pari, you said, sir? Ikshita is to seek.
Ikshita is to see. Pari is generally looking, it's like around.
Thank you, sir.
Everywhere kind of meaning. Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapana Hata Dhyam, Draunimetya Twaduktya, Tanmuktam Brahmamastram, Samahrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam Cha Jahre. And then he removes that that jewel which Ashwatthama had in his forehead, which gives him unlimited power over anybody who's less than a human. So he had power over all of those creatures, but that was also taken from Ashwatthama. The first time when he tried to, when he killed the Upapandavas. संसुप्त द्रौपदीय क्षपण हतधियं द्रौणिमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृत विजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे
संसुप्तद्रौपदेय क्षपणहतधियं द्रौणिमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृतविजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे संसुप्तद्रौपदेय क्षपणहतधियं द्रौणिमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृतविजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे
संसुप्तद्रौपदेयक्षपणहतधियं द्रौणिमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समह्यदविजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे संसुप्तद्रौपदेयक्षपणहतधियं द्रौणिमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृतविजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे.
Mridulaji, like you are joining the first two lines. There's a comma after Tvaduktya, the end of the first line.
Okay, so Tanmuktam Brahmamastram is another line?
Yeah, it's another line, yeah. So the first line, last word is Tvaduktya. I heard a different word there. So it's Tvaduktya, comma. The next line, Tanmuktam Brahmamastram.
Thank you.
Okay. Uchchityai Pandavanam, comma. Punarapi cha Vishat Yuttara Garbhamastre, and then you put a plus in this line, Garbhamastre, Rakshan Nangushta Matraha, put a ih sound, Matrah, Kila Jataramagaha. So the ish that is there, you remove it, put a visarga comma, Jataramagaha, Chakrapanir Vibhotvam. Uchchitye Pandavanam Punarapi cha vishatyuttara garbhamastre rakshannangushtamatra kila jataramagaha chakrapanir vibhotvam.
उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्ठमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम् उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्ठमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम्
उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्ठमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम् उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्ठमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम्.
11. Dharmaugham dharmasunorabhidhadakilam chandamrityus bhishmah tvam pashyan bhakti bhumnaivahi sapadiyayo nishkala brahma bhuyam samyajatasvamedhai sribirati mahitai dharmajam purnakamam samprapto dwarakam tvam pavanapurapate pahimam sarvarogat. So after all this has happened, and finally the war is over, and Parikshit is protected right from the previous stanza, and then Krishna finally says, okay, it's time for me to leave to Dwarka. So when he's leaving, Yudhishthira has a different problem now. Yudhishthira says, we went and killed all my family members, all of these things. I don't think I deserve the kingdom. And then Krishna says, what? Like I said the entire Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna because he did not want to fight. Now we fought. Everybody has been killed. They've been gotten rid of. And now Yudhishthira says, oh, I don't deserve this. I don't want the kingdom at all. I don't feel like ruling. Right? So everybody tries to convince Yudhishthira that, what he's earned is his right. But Yudhishthira is still not convinced. So even Krishna decides it's not his responsibility to convince Yudhishthira at this time because there's a different person who is waiting to see all of these people, which is Bhishma. So as you know, Bhishma, he's been lying on that bed of arrows for almost like 50 days or something, because he had what was called as a Icham Mrityu. He could decide when he could give up his life. And if you recall all the way back to Dasakam 4, when we did the Ashtanga Yoga Varnanam, it says when somebody is getting liberated, the soul then goes up above the earthly plane and waits for the Uttarayana column, Uttarayana time, to then go over the northern sun, area of the sun. So anyway, so Bhishma decided that instead of waiting above the earthly plane, he will wait in earth itself for the Uttarayana column to come. So like I think a month back was a Bhishma Jayanti, or January sometime, or February, I forget when. Lemont also had like a Sahasranamam for 7 times. So Bhishma Jayanti, the Ekadashi day on which Bhishma gave up his life, right? So Bhishma was waiting. Huh?
January.
January, yeah, I remember coming to Lemont for that. So everybody goes. So everyone goes to the place where Bhishma is, and then Yudhishthira asks Bhishma the questions, and Bhishma then teaches him everything that is to be known about Dharma, right, to Yudhishthira. And then that's when Yudhishthira also asks the 6 questions to Bhishma. Like, Kimekam Daivatam Loke Kimbapyekam Parayanam. That's the Vishnu Sahasranamam, right? So then Bhishma then tells the Vishnu Sahasranam all of that, and after that, Bhishma gives up his life with Krishna standing in front. Right? So that's the most somebody can ask for, is at the time of death, are you able to think of Bhagavan? Right? That is all everybody has to wish for. So Bhishma was so blessed that when he was about to give his life, he was in the battlefield looking at Krishna, he prayed to Krishna and then gave up his life. So that's what he's talking here about, what happened to Bhishma. And then eventually Krishna helped Yudhishthira complete the 3 Ashwamedha Yajnas after they have won. And then finally Krishna left for Dwaraka after this entire Mahabharata war. So Dharmaugam, Dharma Sunor, that particular long word, I'm going to break it into 3 words there. Dharma Sunor Abhidhadat Akilam. Okay, so the third that is coming there, we're going to break it into it and a. So Dharma Sunor Abhidhadat Akilam Chanda Mrityusa Bhishmaha. Put a visarga and comma, so that line is continuous. Next line, first word is goes away. Tvam Pashyan Bhakti Bhumnaivahi, comma, Sapadi Yayau Nishkala Brahma Bhuyam. Dharmaugham Dharma Sunorabhidhatadakilam Chanda Mrityusa Bhishmaha Tvam Pashyan Bhakti Bhumnaivahi Sapadi Yayau Nishkala Brahma Bhuyam.
Dharmaugham dharmasunorabhidadakhilam Chandamrityussa bhishmaha Tvam pashyan bhakti bhumnaivahi Sapadiyayau nishkala brahma bhuyam. Dharmaugham dharmasunor abhidadat Akhilam Chandamrityussa bhishmaha Tvam pashyan bhakti bhumnaivahi Sapadiyayau nishkala brahma bhuyam.
Dharmaugam Dharma Sunor Abhidadatthakilam Chandamrityussa Bhishmaha Tvam Pashyan Bhakti Bhumaivahi Sapatiyayau Nishkala Brahma Bhuyam. Dharmaugam Dharma Sunor Abhidadat Akhilam Chandamrityussa Bhishmaha Tvam Pashyan Bhakti Bhumaivahi Sapatiyayau Nishkala Brahma Bhuyam.
Really, the second line, middle word, Bhakti Bhum Naiva.
Bhakti Bhumnaiva.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next one, long word, Samyajyatashva Medhai. So that first part of the word, you cannot break it. But remember the word Ashwamedha, right? Because Samyajyatashva Medhais, it's coming together that way. So Samyaja Ashwamedhais, that's the word there, but joint. So Samyaja Tashwamedhais Tribhirati Mahitair Dharmajam Purna Kamam. So the entire line is together, comma. Samprapto Dwarakam Tvam, comma. Pavana Purapate Pahimam Sarvarogat. O Guruvayurappa, please save me from all the ailments. संह्याज्याताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरतिमहितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्.
संयाज्याताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरतिमहितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्. संयाज्याताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरतिमहितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्.
संयाजाथाश्वमेधै त्रिभिरतिमहितै धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्. संयाज्यात् अश्वमेधै त्रिभिरतिमहितै धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्.
Well, if possible, don't explicitly say the word Ashwamedha. I think if you're able to, like, that comes as one word because of the Sandhi. So Samyajaatashwamedhais.
Okay. Samyajathashwamedhai.
Correct. Yes.
என்ன
Thank you.
டிஃபரன்ஸ் அது? இட்ஸ் த
It's just
மீனிங் அதே ஒன்னே வருது, ரைட்?
but generally Sanskrit, when there are two different words which are like ending with, it's something ends with a ta, other starts with a a, you don't separate it. That's just a grammatical rule. The meaning is the same. Samyajatasha tasha ashwamedhai. So that meaning doesn't change. But that's a grammatical rule, is you don't separate it out. You keep it complete. Yeah.
In my book அது மஹிதைஹி என்று இருக்கு.
Then you just put a ir because tha is coming there. So mahitair
தர்மஜம் பூர்ணகாமம்.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, we'll go to Dasakam 87, which is Kuchelo Pakyanam. Stanza 1. This is the two-liner tunes. Kuchela nama bhavatassa tirtyatam gatassa sandipani mandire dvijah tvadekaragena dhanadi nispruho dinani ninye prashami grihashrami. So Krishna has now come back to Dwaraka, right? So this is all now happening after Krishna has come back to Dwaraka. So he had a friend from his school days. So if you remember, this Dasakam 76 says Gatva Sandipanimata Chatushashti Matreirahu Bigi. So he learned 64 arts in 64 days. Krishna went to Sandipani Ashram finally after getting rid of Kamsa. So there he meets a friend called as Sudama. So who becomes very close with Krishna, very close friend of Krishna. Now that close friend of Krishna, he was a Brahmin by birth, right? And then he was very dedicated to all the Vedic knowledge. And even from then, he was not attached to any of the sensory pleasures, right? So because of which he had his senses under control, not attached to material things. And he was just leading his life as a grihashrami, means he was leading his life as a householder, right? With family and everything. And he was, whatever money used to come from any of the Vedic practices he used to do, he used to take care of his family. But he was very poor because he was not, and he never bothered with having things. And then he was just contented with what he had. And because of that, it says his mind was always calm, which was the most important, because he didn't care for a lot of the material things. And the name is said as Kuchela. See, Kuchela means somebody who's extremely weak. So it is not necessarily a noun, right? It is kind of it's an adjective. It describes a person, Kuchela. But because this person was so weak and poor, people used to call him as Kuchela. But his actual name is Sudama. Okay. So
Weak as in family? I mean, in physical weak?
Yeah, because he's so poor. So he didn't have money to buy anything, eat anything. So he was always wearing ragged clothes. His clothes were torn. So it's a combination, right? It is like somebody who's like if you look at a beggar on the street, very weak, wearing ragged clothes. He's called a Kuchela. So this Sudama was like that, right? No money, very weak. His bones were visible, and he was always wearing, torn clothes and everything. So people used to call him Kuchela.
Thank you.
Kuchela nama bhavataha, put is bhavatas satirtyatam, comma, gataha, put is gatas sa sandipani mandire dvijaha, त्वदेक रागेन धनादि निस्पृहो, कमा, दिनानि निन्ये प्रशमी गृहाश्रमी. कुचेदनामा भवतस्य तीर्थ्यतां गतस्य सान्दीपनि मन्दिरे द्विजः त्वदेक रागेन धनादि निस्पृहो दिनानि निन्ये प्रशमी गृहाश्रमी.
कुचेलनामा भवतस्य तीर्थ्यतां गतस्य सान्दीपनिमन्दिरे द्विजः त्वदेकरागेण धनादिनिस्पृहो दिनानि निन्ये प्रशमी गृहाश्रमी. कुचेलनामा भवतस्य तीर्थ्यतां गतस्य सान्दीपनिमन्दिरे द्विजः त्वदेकरागेण धनादिनिस्पृहो दिनानि निन्ये प्रशमी गृहाश्रमी.
कुचेलनामा भवतत्सतीर्थ्यतां गतस्य सान्दीपनी मन्दिरे द्विजः त्वदेकरागेण धनादिनिस्पृहो दिनानि निन्ये प्रशमी गृहाश्रमी. कुचेलनामा भवतत्सतीर्थ्यतां गतस्य सान्दीपनी मन्दिरे द्विजः त्वदेकरागेण धनादिनिस्पृहो दिनानि निन्ये प्रशमी गृहाश्रमी.
Answer to समानशीलापि तदीयवल्लभा तथैव नोचित्तजयं समीयुषी कदाचिदूचे बत वृत्तिलब्धये रमापतेः किं न सखा निषेव्यते. So he had a wife, right? Wife's name is Kalyani. So the wife also was equally like him, right? Very weak, her bones were visible, right? And it was obviously, right, because they were overall very poor. And she was also equal minded like him. See, that's very important because Kuchela did not care about money. He did not want any of the material things. His wife was also in a similar character, right? So they both were doing fine. However, they had 27 children. So they had to take care of all of these children, right? So as a mother, she always felt like you need to have at least basic necessities at home for her to cook, for her to take care of the children and everything. So she used to always go and, ask for things from him, which was expected. However, Bhattaripat says, however, she is not completely won over. Chitta Jayam. She had not completely won over the mind like Kuchela had, like Sudama had. Although she was also equally minded, right? So one day, but in general, Sudama used to always say, like we all used to say, right? Oh, you know what? My close buddy in college with who I was in my hostel room, he has now become the MP or he has become the actor or he has become a big businessman, right? So Sudama always used to say, one of my closest friends at Sandipani Ashramam, you know who he is? He is Dwarakadish, right? He literally has married the Mahalakshmi. So he's so wealthy. He always used to keep talking about Krishna, about how he was so friends with Krishna when he was going up and all of these things. So one day, Kuchela's wife, Kalyani, goes and tells, you keep talking so much about your friend Krishna, but you've never gone and seen him. He has so much money. Everything in Dwaraka is made of gold, right? And we know that Krishna always protects, he's always nice to Brahmanas, he's always nice to good level people. So why haven't you even approached him even once? Because for him to help you is absolutely no big deal, right? He will absolutely help you. You keep telling you're so much of his friend, then why aren't you going to him and ask him for something, right? His wife one day decides to ask him that. So, Samana Shilapi Tadiya Vallabha, Tathaiva no Chittajayam Sameyushi longi Kadachiduche Bata Vritti Labdhaye, Ramapatihi Ramapatih Kim na Sakha Nishevyate. समानशीलापि तदीयवल्लभा तथैव नोचित्तजयं समीयुषी कदाचिदूचे बत वृत्तिलब्धये रमापतिः किं न सखा निषेव्यते
समानशीलापि तदीयवल्लभा तथैव नोचित्तजयं समेयुषी कदाचिदूचे बत वृद्धिलब्धये रमापतिः किं न सखा निषेव्यते समानशीलापि तदीयवल्लभा तथैव नोचित्तजयं समेयुषी कदाचिदूचे बत वृद्धिलब्धये रमापतिः किं न सखा निषेव्यते
समानशीलापि तदीयवल्लभा तथैव नोचित्तजयं समेयुषी कदाचिदूचे पदवृत्तिलब्धये रमापतिः किं न सखा निषेव्यते समानशीलापि तदीयवल्लभा तथैव नोचित्तजयं समेयुषी कदाचिदूचे पदवृत्तिलब्धये रमापतिः किं न सखा निषेव्यते.
इति ऋतोऽयं प्रियया क्षुधार्तया जुगुप्समानोऽपि धने मदावहे तदा त्वदालोकनकौतुकाद्ययो वहन् पटान्ते पृथुकानुपायनम्. So when she says, you should go meet Krishna, you haven't met him at all. So then Sudama tells her, what, actually you're right. He says to go and meet Krishna is such a great blessing, right? I should be fortunate. First of all, he's not sure if Krishna will meet him, right? Because he's like a king, right? And Sudama is like a very ordinary poor Brahmin. So he's even worried about whether he can enter into Dwaraka, first of all, to begin with, and then to get access to the king. It's like us going and trying to meet the president, right? Just out of the blue. You can't just go meet. So he's worried about that. So, but he says one thing, he says, what? But you're right. He asks his wife, how come you never told me this all these days? You keep asking everything, but you never once you told me, why don't you go meet Krishna? It is a fantastic idea that you are actually telling. So his wife Kalyani says, I don't know why I never told you all these days. She says, but maybe Krishna is thinking about you today, right? Which is prompting me to tell you to go meet Krishna now, right? Which is so important because he keeps talking about Krishna all these days, but never once, neither of them felt like going and meeting. But he says, finally, maybe Krishna thinks the time is right for you to go meet with him, which is now making me say that, so you go now. So then he decides to go. But now he says, when I'm going to meet Krishna, how can I go empty-handed, right? He is like the Dwarakadesh, I have to take something, but they have absolutely nothing in their house. So literally, Kalyani goes to her neighbors' houses, and then from each house, you can't get 4 different things. So she gets the same thing from each person's house, which is nothing but a raw poha, right? She just gets a raw poha from everybody's house. No time to cook. They don't have anything in their house. And then there's nothing to pack. So she literally rips off the tail end of her sari and then packs the poha in that and says, okay, you take this. And this is the only gift we have, right? To go give it to your friend. So you take this and go. So iti ritoyam priyaya kshudartaya, jugup samanopi dhane madavahe tada twadalokana kautukadhyayau, bahan patante pritukanupayanam. This pritukan is referring to that poha, which is like parched rice, flat rice. Bahan patante pritukanupayanam. Iti ritoyam priyaya kshudartaya jugupsamanopi dhane madavahe tada twadalokana kautukadhyayau vahan patante pritukanupayanam.
इति ऋतोऽयं प्रियया क्षुधार्तया जुगुस्समानोऽपि धने मदावहे तदा त्वदालोकनकौतुकाद्ययौ वहन् पटान्ते पृथुकानुपायनम् इति ऋतोऽयं प्रियया क्षुधार्तया जुगुस्समानोऽपि धने मदावहे तदा त्वदालोकनकौतुकाद्ययौ वहन् पटान्ते पृथुकानुपायनम्.
Iti इतिरितोऽयं प्रिययाक्षुतार्तया जुगुप्समानोऽपि धने मदावहे तदा कौतुकाद्ययौ वहन् पडान्ते पृथुकानुपायनम् इतिरितोऽयं प्रिययाक्षुतार्तया जुगुप्समानोऽपि धने मदावहे तदा कौतुकाद्ययौ वहन् पडान्ते पृथुकानुपायनम्.
That's all. Gato ह्यमाश्चर्यमयीं भवत्पुरीं गृहेषु शैब्या भवनं समेयिवान् प्रविश्य वैकुण्ठमिवापनिर्वृतिं तवाति सम्भावनया तु किं पुनः. So Sudama, he is in this place. There's a place called Sudama Puri, which is Porbandar. You know where Mahatma Gandhi was. Porbandar. That is where Sudama
Rajesh ji,
was.
Sudama and Kuchela both are one and the same.
Same
Kuchela
person. Is the description of it. Sudama is the actual name. Okay, but he's also called Kuchela because of the way he was. So he was in Porbandar, right? So from there, he had to go all the way to Dwaraka. Both of them are in Gujarat only. So it takes him some time. And somehow he's able to get through the gates of Dwaraka and then go in. And when he enters there, he sees the richness of that place, right? And he feels like, am I already in Vaikuntham? Because the place is so lavish, so well constructed, and extremely rich place, right? And he sees all the 16,000 houses for the various wives of Krishna, and it's just massive, right? So he's just sitting and wondering, how he feels out of place there when he actually enters into Dwaraka. So finally, he enters into one of the palace where they say Krishna is there that day. Krishna is there in Rukmini's palace that day. So he enters there. There's a lot of people waiting to see Krishna. And then he looks at the people who have come. These are all kings who have come to meet Krishna. And they're all carrying so many gifts, right? They're carrying gold, they're carrying fruits, they're carrying all these things. And amongst all those kings and other people, Kuchela is sitting there, right, with torn clothes and carrying this parched avil. So he's like wondering, how am I able to even get through all of these things, right? I'm going to be so much low in the pecking order to be able to meet Krishna. But somehow he didn't have to, because, you don't have to see Krishna as long as Krishna can see you, right? So Krishna is able to see that Sudama is waiting there, and Krishna immediately comes there and then welcomes Kuchela. So with that's why Bhattacharya is saying, Tavati Sambhavanayatu Kim Punaha. He says, what other welcome, Sambhavana, what other welcome can one expect other than Krishna himself coming out and then welcoming you in? So Gatoyam Ascharyamayim, if you want to break at that, Gatoyam Ascharyamayim Bhavat Purim, Griheshu Shaibya Bhavanam Sameyivan Pravishya Vaikuntham Ivapa Nirvritim, Tavati Sambhavanayatu Kim Punaha. Gato Yamascharyamayim Bhavatpurim Griheshu Shaibya Bhavanam Sameyivan Pravishya Vaikunthamiva Nirvritim Tavati Sambhavanayatu Kim Punaha.
गतो यमाश्चर्यमयीं भवत्पुरीं गृहेषु शैभ्या भवनं समेयिवान् प्रविश्य वैकुण्ठमिवापनिर्वृतिं तवाति सम्भावनया तु किं पुनः गतो यमाश्चर्यमयीं भवत्पुरीं गृहेषु शैभ्या भवनं समेयिवान् प्रविश्य वैकुण्ठमिवापनिर्वृतिं तवाति सम्भावनया तु किं पुनः
गतोऽयमाश्चर्यमयीं भवत्पुरीं गृहेषु शैब्या भवनं समेयिवान् प्रविश्य वैकुण्ठमिवाप निर्वृत्तिं तवादि सम्भावनया तु किं पुनः.
Ji, that second line, Griheshu Shaibya.
Shaibya. Yeah. Shaibya. What does that mean? Shaibya?
Actually, it is referring to Mitravinda. I think he gets the place where even Mitravinda is there. Both Mitravinda and Rukmini are there. So Shaibya is referring to Mitravinda, one of the wives.
Thank you. Gatoyamascharyamayim bhavatpurim griheshu shaibya bhavanam sameyivan प्रविश्य वैकुण्ठमिवापनिर्वृतिं तवादिसम्भावनया तु किं पुनः.
Right, we'll switch. We're halfway. So Gayatri, you can be a student, and Radha, you can be a student. Sense of five. प्रपूजितं तं प्रियया च बीजितं करे गृहीत्वा कतयः पुरा कृतं यदिन्धनार्थं गुरुधारचोदितैः अपर्तुवर्षं तदमर्षिकानने. So he's welcomed by Krishna, and Krishna then welcomes him, takes him inside, right, into the private quarters, and then Krishna washes Kuchela's feet, and then takes the water, puts it on his head, like very similar to what he did in Yudhishthira's Rajasuya Yajna. When you wash Brahmana's feet, you should take that water is so pure that I'm putting it on my head. It's a matter of respect to do that. So Krishna does all that, and Rukmini, who is Mahalakshmi herself incarnated, she is fanning Kuchela. She's taking care of him. So when all the people in the palace see all this, they're like wondering, who is this person, right? He doesn't look like he's some saint or anybody. He's definitely not a rich person. But who is this person that Dwarakadish Krishna himself is going and washing his feet, and then Mahalakshmi is going and Rukmini is going and fanning him and then keeping him cool. So it must be really blessed, right? He must have really done some lot of pious deeds in the past. So something is unique about this person. So as they are sitting and doing, Krishna and Sudama are talking, right? So they talk about, a story that happened when they were small at Sandipani's ashramam, where Krishna says, Sudama, do you remember when we were in Sandipani's ashramam? One day we both went to collect firewoods for our guru, and then we went into the forest. We got stuck in the forest, and then it became dark. It started raining heavily, and we could not see anywhere which direction to go, and we both had to stay in the forest overnight, right? So we were taking care of each other, right, in the forest, and then next day morning the guru came looking for us and finally found us. So they kind of talking through all their childhood stories and childhood memories of how they used to really miss each other, and how they must really like each other. So prapujitam tam priyaya cha bijitam, kare grihitva katayaha. One word. Put a if to join. Katayah purakritam. Yadin dhanartam guru dara choditaihi. So the ra that is there, put a visarga comma. Choditaihi. Next word will start with the a. Apartu varsham tadamarshi kanane. प्रपूजितं तं प्रियया च वीजितं करे गृहीत्वा कतयः पुराकृतं यदिन्धनार्थं गुरुदारचोदितैः अपर्तु वर्षं तदमर्षिकानने.
प्रपूजितं प्रियया च वीजितं करे गृहीत्वा कतयः पुराकृतं यदिन्धनार्थं गुरुदार चोदितैः अपर्दुवर्षं तदमर्षिकानने.
Actually, in the first line, prapujitam tam, rendu tam, two tam.
Okay. प्रपूजितं तं प्रियया च वीजितं करे गृहीत्वा कतयः पुराकृतं यदीन्दनार्थं गुरुधारचोदितैः अपर्तुवर्षं तदमर्षिकानने.
प्रपूजितं तं प्रियया च वीजितं करे गृहीत्वा कतयः पुराकृतं यदीन्दनार्थं गुरुधारचोदितैः अपर्तुवर्षं तदमर्षिकानने. प्रपूजितं तं प्रियया च वीजितं करे गृहीत्वा कतयः पुराकृतं यदीन्दनार्थं गुरुधारचोदितैः अपर्तुवर्षं कदमर्षिकानने.
Stanza 6. त्रपाजुषोऽस्मात् पृथुकं बलादत प्रगृह्य मुष्टौ सकृदाशिते त्वया कृतं नन्वियतेति सम्भ्रमात् रमा किलोपेत्यकरं रुरोदते. So Krishna is also inquiring from Sudama, like how have you been? Like we all talk when you meet a friend after a really long time. Did you get married? Are you settled down? And Krishna says, I know your character, right? I'm sure you still are continuing how you were when you were a child, when you were in school, which is you are not attached to material things. You are leading a very truthful life and a very honest life and everything. So Krishna inquires all that, and then Krishna asks him, "What have you got for me?" Right? And there is a very beautiful shloka from Bhagavatam. I'll just chant that, which is what Krishna tells Sudama. So he says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyupakritam ashnami prayatatmanah. So literally Krishna is saying that it doesn't matter what somebody offers me. They can offer me a leaf, which is patram. They can offer me a pushpam, they can offer me a flower, or they can literally offer me water, toyam, right? As long as it is offered, yome bhaktya prayachati. As long as one is offering to me with bhakti, that is superior than any amount of things anybody else is offering, right? And it is easy to say this, but we all make so many things in our life when we do is we always want to give the best, and which is totally fine. You can always want to give the best to the Lord because that's what you feel like giving. Totally fine. But do not constrain yourself by focusing on what is the best, right? The focus should be on how do I offer it to Krishna with bhakti. And as part of that, if you want to make a special pal payasam with vitamin D milk, fine, right? You can do that. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But you shouldn't worry about focusing on how do I make a good prasadam we should rather worry about how do I give it with bhakti, right? That's the most important thing, right? Interestingly, in the Shivaratri day, we were talking at night and somebody was telling, oh, you know what? I didn't get a chance to put a Vilvam on Shiva. I said, Vilvam, that hunter happened to be sitting on a Vilvam tree. So he put Vilvam. So Vilvam becomes great. If the hunter was sitting on some other tree, he would have put that some other leaf. Right? So it's okay, great. If you can get a Vilvam, put it because that's what that person did. But it doesn't matter. Whatever you put, any flower you put with bhakti, that is enough. Right? Because God is not going to compare you based on how rich or how poor you are, which is exactly what is happening here. So Krishna says, it doesn't matter, Kushila, you are waiting. What have you got? Right? So Kushila is like very, he's even hesitating to give what he has, right? Because he's got raw avil, poha, that too in a torn cloth. But Krishna somehow sees it, and then Krishna snatches it, and then he takes one mushti of that avil. That's why it says, Pragrihya mushtau sakradashite tvaya. So you take one mushti of that avil and you put it in your mouth, Krishna. And then he says, you know what, Kushila, this is my most favorite, right? That you have got the item which is my most favorite. And then he's about to take the second mushti when Rama kilopetya karam rurodate. Rama, who is Mahalakshmi Rukmini, is holding off Krishna's hands and say, Krishna, enough. I think you've eaten enough for today. Right? This one mushti of avil is sufficient. You don't need to eat anymore. Right? And she's stopping him. Trapa jushosmat pritukam baladata, pragrihya mushtau sakridashite tvaya kritam nanviyateti. So the next word, the two lines are going to come together. So the way you say it is sambramat. You will have a dra in Sanskrit. So we're just going to break it. Sambramat rama kilopetya karam rurodate. Okay, and you say that together. Trapajushoस्मात् पृतुकं बलादत प्रगृह्य मुष्टौ सकृदाशिते त्वया कृतं नन्वियतेति सम्भ्रमात् रमा किलोपेत्य करं रुरोदते.
त्रभाजुषोत्समात् भृतकं बलादद प्रगृह्य मुष्टौ सकृदासिते त्वया कृतं नन्वियतेति सम्परमात् रमा किलोद्भेद्यकरं रुदोदते. சரியா வர மாட்டேங்குது.
कृतं नन्वियतेति सम्भ्रमात् रमा किलोपेत्य करं रुरोदते.
Okay. त्रभाजुषोत्समात् भृतकं बलादत प्रगृह्य मुष्टौ सकृदासिते त्वया कृतं कृतं नन्वियतेति सम्भ्रमात् किलो भेद्यकरं रुरोदते.
And the sambramat, when you're saying, Gayatri, just take it down a notch, right?
Okay.
Kritam kritam nanviyate ti sambramat rama kilopetya.
Okay.
So you don't give a pause there, do you? Like, or a comma there? Like,
There's no comma, it goes continuous.
continuously.
Yeah. But I'm just separating those two words, so it's easy to say that particular word.
Sambramat.
Yeah.
So pause a little by sambramat.
Yeah. Sambramat rama kilopetya.
My turn, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. त्रपाजिषोऽस्मात् पृथकं बलादता प्रगृह्य मुष्ट्यो सकृताशिते त्वया कृतं कृतं नन्वियतेति सम्भ्रमात् रमा क्रिलोपेत्यकरं रुरोधते. त्रपाशुचोऽस्मात् प्रतुकं बलादता प्रगृह्य मुष्टो सकृताश्रिते त्वया कृतं कृतं नन्वियतेति सम्भ्रमात् रमा किलोपेत्यकरं रुरोदते.
Rather, the first line, the middle word, pritukam.
Nayanasana.
Pritakam, you said.
Thanks, sorry.
Oh,
Pritukam.
Answer 7. Bhakteshu bhaktena samanitastmaya purim vasanneka nisham mahasukham bata paredhyurdravinam vinayayo vichitra rupastava khalvanugraha. So, Kuchela is like, Krishna, of course, knows what is happening, right? He knows that Kuchela is not of the type that he's going to now worry about material things. And he has come here because his wife told him to come and meet Krishna, right? That's why he has come. And he's in a very awkward situation right now. So, anyway, they don't talk about anything that night. Kuchela has a very good meal, right? Come and end like a feast that the king is actually throwing. And that's why it says Nisham Mahasukam. He spends the night in a very comfortable manner in one of the palaces of Krishna. And they keep talking all that. The next day morning, time comes to leave. And Sudama now leave. Krishna then comes and lets him, at the entrance. And then Sudama leaves. So he's been so embarrassed to go even ask Krishna something, right? He did not get anything from Krishna at that point. And because he also is embarrassed to ask Krishna, because he says, I am going there to meet Krishna. That is the purpose of it, right? I am not going there to get any money or anything to be with Krishna. So when he's walking back, he's thinking to himself, it's what a privilege it is for me, right? That I'm going there, Dwaraka I got an audience with him. Then he comes, he washes my feet, and then his wife is like coming and fanning me, and then he's giving me a king's feast, right? And then he's making me stay in his quarters. All of this for a completely poor person, right? So Sudama is feeling so happy as he was, right? And he's just thinking that I'm actually really blessed, right? That I'm actually getting this opportunity. So bhakteshu bhaktena sa manitastvaya, purim vasanneka nisham mahasukam bataparedhyur dravinam vinayayau, vichitra rupas tava khalvanugraha. So Bhattacharya is saying, who can predict what your blessings are going to be, how you are going to bless somebody? You cannot, nobody knows how everybody is going to be blessed by the Lord. But similarly, nobody knows why you treated Kuchela Sudama like this, what is going to happen to him. Nobody knows. Bhakteshu bhaktena samanitastwaya purim vasanneka nisham mahasukham bata paredhyur dravinam vinayayau vichitra rupastava khalvanugraha.
Bhakteshu bhaktena samanitastwaya purim vasanneka nisham mahasukam pada paredhyur dravinam vinayayau vichitra rupastava kalvanugragaha. Bhakteshu bhaktena samanitastwaya purim vasanneka nisham mahasukam pada paredhyur dravinam vinayayau vichitra rupastava kalvanugragaha.
Bhakteshu bhaktena samanitasttvaya पुरीं वसन्नेकनिशां महासुखं बतापरेद्य द्रविणं विनाययौ विचित्रनूपस्तव कल्वनुग्रहः
Radha, the second line, first word, bata pare dyur, dyu sound, dyur.
बतापरेद्युर्
Yeah.
सर भक्तेषु भक्तेन समान्वितस्त्वया पुरीं वसन्नेकनिशां महासुखं बतापरेद्युद्रविणं विनाययौ विचित्ररूपस्तव कल्वनुग्रहः.
Answer 8. यदि ह्ययाचिष्यमदास्यदच्युतो वदामि भार्यां किमिति व्रजन्नसौ त्वदुक्तिलीलास्मितमग्नदीः पुनः क्रमादपश्यन्मनिधिप्रमालयम्. So as Sudama is walking back, he's thinking that if I had asked Krishna anything, there's absolutely no doubt Krishna would have given it to me. Right? There's no doubt about it, right? But he says, I didn't feel like asking Krishna anything. I was just going there just because I loved Krishna and I got a chance to meet him. But the way he's thinking maybe, see, Krishna also knows how poor Sudama is, right? So he's also thinking, Krishna can see looking at me how poor I am. But Krishna also did not give me anything. There must have been some reason for that. Because Krishna must have thought that this person is leading a proper, straightforward life. If I end up giving him a lot of money, maybe he's going to fall into bad ways. So maybe Krishna also decided not to give me anything. So he's justifying why Krishna did not give him anything. But he's worried about, but what will I go to answer my wife when I go back? Right? So Vadami Bharyam Kimiti Brajana. So when I go and Kalyani asks, what did you get from Krishna? Did you ask him for anything? So what am I going to say? Right? So he's worried about that. So when he's just thinking about it, and then finally he reaches his village or the Porbandar, Sudamapuri, he reaches there. And then in the place where his house used to be, he's suddenly seeing, like a massive palace kind of shape, structure there, lot of people waiting outside. And then he's beginning to wonder, where have I come right now? So, yadi hyaya chishyam. So that's a half ha. Hyaya chishyam adasyad achyuto. 3 words there. Adasyad achyuto, if you want to break it. Vadami bharyam kimiti vrajannasau. Twadukti leelasmita magnadhihi. Put a F, magnadhif punaha, comma. Kramada pashyan mani deepramalayam. यदि ह्ययाचिष्यमदास्यदच्युतो वदामि भार्यां किमिति व्रजन्नसौ त्वदुक्तिलीलास्मितमग्नधिः पुनः क्रमादपश्यन्मनिधिप्रमालयम्.
यदि ह्यया शिष्यमदास्यच्युतो वदामि भार्यां किमिति व्रजन्नसौ त्वदुक्तिलीलास्मितमग्नति पुनः क्रमादपश्यन्मनिधिभ्रमालयम्.
Gayatri, in the first line, chishyam adasyat, the sound is coming. Adasyat achyuto. It achyuto.
Okay, அது சேர்த்து சொல்ல முடியாதா?
If you are saying it together, it becomes adasya dachyuto. Da sound has to come then.
Okay. यदि ह्यया शिष्यमदास्यदच्युतो वदामि भार्यां किमिति व्रजन्नसौ त्वदुक्तिलीलास्मिदमग्नधि पुनः क्रमादपश्यन्मनिधिभ्रमालयम्.
यदि ह्ययाचिष्यमदास्यदच्युतो वदामि भार्यां किमिति व्रजन्नसौ त्वदुक्तिलीलास्मितमग्नधि पुनः क्रमादपश्यन्मनिधिप्रमालयम्. यदि ह्ययाचिष्यमदास्यदच्युतो वदामि भार्यां किमिति व्रजन्नसौ त्वदुक्तिलीलास्मितमग्नधि पुनः क्रमादपश्यन्मनिधिप्रमालयम्.
Answer 9. किं मार्गविभ्रंशयिति भ्रमन् क्षणं गृहं प्रविष्टः सददर्श वल्लभां सखीपरीतां मणिहेमभूषितां भुबोध च त्वत्करुणां महाद्भुताम्. So he keeps wondering, Kim Mark, have I like lost my way because this was not how where my house used to be. So when he enters in, then he sees all this, extremely lavish palace or house he has. Then his wife, Kalyani is also well dressed and well decked, and she thinks that somehow Krishna has sent money and somebody came and overnight just built a big house, right, magically. But no, Sudama or Kuchela knows that that did not happen, and the important aspect here is not to focus on the fact that he got this, right? Because that is wrong inference. Because then that will lead us to say that when I go pray or I go to Krishna, Krishna is going to give me a lot of money. That is not what it is, right? Because Sudama did not want this. Okay, so what he wanted was he wanted to meet. So we should kind of make sure that this is not articulated in a way that saying that, you know what, I'm poor, I don't have something, whether it be money or whatever else you want, right? You should not think of it as, oh, I just go pray to Krishna. Even if Krishna doesn't give it to me when I ask, eventually he will give it to me. You should remove that part of the equation out. Because even if Krishna had not given this to Sudama, Sudama would have still liked and loved Krishna the exact same way. It wouldn't have changed, right? So just because he happened to get it doesn't mean that is always going to be the outcome that everybody gets, right? And that's not the intention here also. Anyway, so the last stanza, I'll just continue through it. So even though that's what it says, even though he was living in such a big palace and everything, he did not care for it, right? It was more than what he wanted anyways, right? But he still continued to be devoted. Eventually he then attained you Krishna through liberation, because that was his focus, right? So with that, to Krishna who takes care of devotees, Pataripat says, and take care of devotees doesn't mean giving everything that you want. Okay, so with that, this Dasakam comes to end. So it's a beautiful Dasakam. There's a lot of so many hidden things in there, right, that we need to kind of get out. One of them is don't worry about what you offer, and two is don't expect anything in return either. And even if you don't get it, don't worry about it, right? So Kim Marga Vibhramsha iti Brahman Kshanam, Griham Pravishtaha, Puta is Pravishtas, Sa Dadarsha Vallabham, Sakhi Paritam Mani Hema Bhushitam, Bubhoda Cha Twat Karunam Mahadbhutam.
Rajesh, sorry, very sorry to interrupt. Is it Brahman or Brahman?
Brahman.
There's no two M's. There's no stress on the ma.
No, Brahman.
Okay, thank you.
Second Bha.
Thank you.
Bubodana enna per adu?
No, I think Bubhoda Chatva. No, he just realized how great your karuna is, your compassion is. So Bubhoda probably means realizing it in that context.
Okay.
Kim marga vibhramsha iti brahman kshanam griham pravishta sadadarsha vallabham sakhi paritam manihema bhushitam bubhoda chatvat karunam mahadbhutam.
Kim marga vibramsha idi brahmanshanam Kim marga vibramsha idi brahmanshanam griham pravishta sadadarsha vallabham Saki paritam manihema bhushitam bubhodacha tvat karunam mahadbhutam. Kim marga vibramsha idi brahmamshanam griham pravishta sadadarsha vallabham Saki paritam manihema bhushitam bubhodacha tvat karunam mahadbhutam.
இங்க என் புக்ல மகாத்புதம் இருக்கு. It's the same meaning, right?
No. See this thing, what do you call adbhutam means something which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, adbhutam. But Tvat karuna mahadbhutam, which means your compassion is being very wonderful, right? So it becomes adbhutam.
Okay. In that way. Okay. Kim marga vibramsha iti brahmanshanam griham pravishta sadadarsha vallabham Saki paritam manihema bhushitam bubhodacha tvat karunam mahadbhutam. किं मार्गविभ्रंश इति भ्रमं क्षणं गृहं प्रविष्टः सददर्श वल्लभां सखी परीतां मणिहेमभूषितां बुबोध च त्वत्करुणां महाद्भुताम्.
स रत्न शालासु वसन्नपि स्वयं, समुन्नमत् भक्ति भरोमृतं ययौ त्वमेव मापूरित, one word, bhakta vanchito, in sound vanchito, marutpuradhisha harasva megadan. Saratnashalasu vasannapi swayam samunnamad bhakti bharomritam yayau tvameva mapurita bhakta vanchito marutpuradhisha harasva megadan.
सरत्नशालासु वसन्नपि स्वयं समुन्नमत् भक्तिपरो भरोमृतं ययौ त्वमेव मापूरित भक्तवाञ्छितो मरुत्पुराधीश हरस्व मे गतान्. सरत्नशालासु वसन्नपि स्वयं समुन्नमद् भक्तिपरो भरोमृतं ययौ त्वमेव मापूरित भक्तवाञ्छितो मरुत्पुराधीश हरस्व मे गतान्.
सरत्नशालासु वसन्नपि स्वयं समुन्नमद्भक्तिभरोमृतं ययौ त्वमेव मापूरित भक्तवाञ्छितो मरुत्पुराधीश हरस्व मे गदान्. सरत्नशालासु वसन्नपि स्वयं समुन्नमद्भक्तिभरोमृतं ययौ त्वमेव मापूरित भक्तवाञ्छितो मरुत्पुराधीश हरस्व मे गदान्. श्री कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
Okay, we'll do maybe a couple of stanzas. 88. So 88, Santhana Gopalopakyanam. Beautiful Dashakam, one of my most favorite, but also very sad Dashakam also, because this is the last of Krishna Avataram, right? From now on, Krishna Avataram comes to an end, which started in 37. It's finally coming to an end in 88, right? So it's the last of the incidents of Krishna. And so this Santana Gopala is one of the forms of Krishna, right? It's Krishna only, but because of what he did, he has a name. Santana Gopala is one who takes care of children, one who protects Santanam, right? Children. So there is a temple in Cochin. If any of you have been there in Tripanatara, there is a temple called as, Purnatrayesha temple, where Krishna's form is Santana Gopalan in that particular temple there. So this one has like a couple of initial small stories that come, and then the main story of Santana Gopalan is going to come a little later. Sorry, somebody had a question.
Which place did you say, sir, in Cochin?
In Cochin, Tripanatara, Tripunitara or something. I may be saying it wrong. Maybe Mridula ji or somebody can correct. Tripanatara or Tripunitara?
Tripunitura.
Tripunitura. Okay. When you're in Cochin airport, when you start driving towards a few places, you'll start seeing boards for that place. So so that is generally a place where people go to if you need children, then they say chant this Dashakam, right? Sometimes they say, right, for this Dashakam 88 is for that.
Thank you.
Stanza 1. Praghe putra hriti nishamanaya sviya shatsunu viksha kankshantyā maturuktya sutalabhu vibalim prapyate narchitastvam dhatushāpādhiranyan vitakashipu bhavan shaurijan kamsa bhagnan aniyenan pradarshya swapadamaneyatāha purva putran marichehe. So it starts off by first, if you remember in Dashakam 76, Sandipani, that particular thing, after Krishna and Balarama finished, and the Guru's wife said, as part of Guru Dakshina, I want you to bring my child back. The child had gone into the Arabian Sea, had disappeared. Then Krishna and Balarama got the child back and gave it to their Guru as Guru Dakshina. So one day, Devaki is coming and asking Krishna that, Krishna, like before you were born, 6 children got killed, right, by Kamsa. So why did that happen to me? Like why did I have to go through the pain of, seeing these six children happening here? And then what happened to those six children? And you are able to do this to your guru, but you're not doing it to your mother. Why wouldn't you bring those children back to me as your mother? Right? So at the time, Krishna then tells her the history of these children, right? And so at the time, what happens is Maharaja Bali, who's in Sutala, so the six children, of course, they are gone, right? But the soul is still there. The soul has taken another birth. So Krishna somehow brings them back, just like how Narada got that back to Chitraketu to tell Chitraketu how the sun is gone, but the sun comes and says, who is my father? In which janmam were you my father? Right? In Dasakam 23, he asks. So anyway, so here Krishna brings those six souls back, right? We have to be careful about how we say that. And those are called as the Shad Garbhas, six Garbha, right? Six of them. And the story goes, like I don't know if I mentioned this before, but you all know that Kalanemi, which in 28th Dashakam, which is Tom Kalanemi Matamali Mukanja Gandha, when Krishna and Narayana and everybody parts of the Amrita Matanam, they get rid of Kalanemi. Then that Kalanemi is then born as Kamsa. We saw that in the 75th. It says you still had that Vasana of Kalanemi, O Kamsa, Bhattatripat says. So that Kalanemi was the son of Hiranyakashipu. He had six children. Those six, that Kalanemi was following what Hiranyakashipu was telling, which is no worshipping of Narayana, you worship me. Kalanemi was following that. This other six children were not following that. They were meditating to Brahma and they got a lot of power. So when Hiranyakashipu tells Kalanemi to get rid of those six children, Hiranyakashipu, Kalanemi doesn't, because they are all blessed by Brahma. They were very strong. So then a curse happens to Kalanemi that eventually at some point in the future, because Hiranyakashipu is also very powerful, so whatever he says also happens. So he curses Kalanemi that you are not getting rid of these six children, of your six children. So at some point in the future, you have to get rid of your children. You will have to take a birth to get rid of it. So there's a lot of these connections that are happening, because of which that Kalanemi is eventually born as Kamsa. The six children are born, and the only karma the six children had to face was an interaction with Kamsa, where Kamsa will try to kill them, right? Or kill them essentially, right? So that is what the story that Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying, Devaki, that you don't know all this complicated web of karma that people build, which all have to come together in various births, right? So it is nothing wrong that you did. It is that these Shad Garbhas had to be born for a brief amount of time, and then they had to die at the hands of Kamsa. And that was the karma still left for them. And then you just happened to be the place where, because they had to be born to Devaki for Kamsa to be able to kill them, because Kamsa was going to kill the child, right? So all of these complicated webs. So Krishna then tells Devaki, I cannot bring back the children, and don't worry, don't think of it as your fault. It is just the karma of those children and the karma of Kalanemi born as Kamsa, which had to be filled in this birth, because of which all of this happened. So Krishna kind of brings it back and then explains to his mother about all of these things. So, Prage Vacharya Putrahriti Nishamanaya, Swiya Shat Sunuviksham, Kankshantya Maturuktya, Sutala Bhuvi Balim Prapya Tenarchi Tastvam. Prage Vacharya Putrahriti Nishamanaya Swiya Shat Sunuviksham Kankshantya Maturuktya Sutala Bhuvi Balim Prapyate Narchitastvam.
Prage Vacharya Putra Hriti Nishamanaya Swiya Shatsunu Viksham Kankshantya Maturuktya Sutala Bhuvi Balim Prapyane Tenarchitastvam. Prage Vacharya Putra Hriti Nishamanaya Swiya Shatsunu Viksham Kankshantya Maturuktya Stutala Bhuvi Balim Prapyate Narchidastvam.
Prage Vacharya Putra Vriti Nishamanaya Sviya Sunu Viksham Kankshantya Maturuktya Sutala Bhuvi Balim प्राप्यते नार्चितस्त्वं
That's
प्रागे
second line, Matu Ruktya, and then there is a comma there.
प्रागेवाचार्य पुत्रा वृत्तिनिशमनया स्वीयशूनुवीक्षां काङ्क्षन्त्या मातुरुक्त्या सुतलभुवि बलिं प्राप्यते नार्चितस्त्वम्.
The first line, Sviya Shat.
அது வரல எனக்கு. ஸ்வீய ஷட் சூனுவாது.
Sunuviksham. Su is a long U, Nu is a short U. Sunuviksham.
சூனுவீக்ஷாம் அப்படியா? ஸ்வீய ஷட் சூனுவீக்ஷாம். சரி, தேங்க்யூ.
Dhatuhu put ish. Dhatush shapat dhiranyanvita kashipu bhavan, comma, shaurijan kamsa bhagnan, put in at the end of that line, comma. Next line, the nani yainan will become ani yainan. Start with the ani yainan pradarshya swapadam anayataha, put a comma, purva putran marichehe. So before they were born to Kalanemi, they were sons of Marichi, one of the great saints. So that's what referring to. They were first, they had to take various births, they had to go through their lives, and eventually now their time was up and then they finally got liberated. Dhatushapadhiranyan vitakashipu bhavan shaurijan kamsa bhagnan aniyainan pradarshya swapadamamayataha purvaputran marichehe.
तादृशाबाधिरन्यां वितकशिबु भवान् कमावा भवान्.
Yeah.
तादृशाबाधिरन्यान् वितकशिबु भवान् शौरिजान् कंसभग्नान् आनीयैनान् प्रदर्श्य स्वपदमनयताः पूर्वपुत्रां मरीचेः. तादृशाबाधिरन्यान् विदकशिबु भवान् शौरिजान् कंसभग्नान् आनीयैनान् प्रदर्श्य स्वपदमनयताः पूर्वपुत्रां मरीचेः.
तातुर्शाभाद्विरण्यान् वितकशिपु भवान् शौरिजान् कंसभग्नान् आनीयेनान् प्रदर्श्य स्वपदमनयताः पूर्वपुत्रान् मरीचेः. धातुर्शापाद्विरण्वितकशिपु भवान् शौरिजान् कंसभग्नान् आनीयेनान् प्रदर्श्य स्वपदमनयताः पूर्वपुत्रान् मरीचेः.
Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Stop here today. Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtamatre punarurupurusharthatmakam brahmatattvam tattabadbhati sakshat gurupavanapure hanta bhagyanjananam काहेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everyone.
Rajesh ji, I have a question.
Thank you, Ji.
Are you planning to do Vishnu Sahasranamam as a teaching for groups, sir, or is it a one-time thing that you did?
I generally don't do it, but I did it. I think you were there in the first round, right? I think you were there. You were not
No,
there.
sir. No, sir.
Oh, Kritika, I know, was there.
I just
Kritika was
came.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I generally don't, but now what happened was one group from Schaumburg, I think your friend.
Right.
Yeah, I think Uma reached out and said they have a group and they wanted to do it. So I said, okay, it's only 6-7 weeks. I'll just do it a one-off. But yeah, I've taught in the past 3-4 batches, but generally I don't because it
You
just,
don't. Okay.
yeah. But
If you did, let me know. If
I'll
you
let you
did,
know.
let me. Thank you, sir. Thank
Sure.
you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Bye, everyone.